What you are seeing today is a patriotic response from the residents and citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis to the people and the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Today we are preparing humanitarian supplies, water, dry goods, and also non-perishable items, along with hygiene kits and also sanitary toiletries. It's important that we continue to support and pray for our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
I want to say how very impressed I am this evening to have come and to witness firsthand the very effective and efficient manner in which NEMA, our National Emergency Agency, has been able to mobilize a broad cross-section of support for the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I want to thank all the donors who have helped us to be able to, within a very short period of time, to stock 2 containers of supplies going to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Well, we're very pleased with the contributions that our citizens have made in very short notice to assist those who have been displaced in St. Vincent, and we are happy to be able to make this contribution.
What is very enlightening and really heartwarming for me is to see how the citizens, ordinary citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, have stepped up to the plate. They heard the clarion call that was made by NEMA, and they have come forward to support this national response.
I want to thank the Red Cross and the young volunteers in particular who have come out today to help with the sorting and the packing and the real good spirit of goodwill that we see exhibited this afternoon by a people caught and shocked by the extensive nature of the destabilization of St. Vincent and the Grenadines occasioned by the volcanic eruption. I feel very good that things are moving and that St. Kitts and Nevis, in an organized way, is making a most positive contribution to the settling of the evacuees in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
A pleasant good evening, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of Leadership Matters. Allow me to first apologize for the late start. We were having some technical difficulties regarding 2 regional link-ups we'll be having this evening. And it's because of that why I've called this edition a special edition. The government and people of St. Kitts and Nevis have been focused on the situation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we have kept the government and people of that country in our prayers. And it is because of the situation there, the Prime Minister is going to be joined this evening by National Emergency Disaster Coordinator at the National Emergency Management Agency, also known as NEMA, Mr. Abdias Samuel, Acting Executive Director at the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, also known as CDEMA, Elizabeth Riley, as well as Director General of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, or OECS, Dr. Didacus Jules. And they will all be providing pertinent information regarding the situation there. And Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, uses this platform to share critical information with you, and this evening is no different. We will begin by hearing his presentation as he puts this evening's show in context. Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Jackie. My fellow citizens and residents, let me welcome you again to another edition of Leadership Matters. This is the most popular public accountability program in the region. This very important series continues to be, as it has become, a fulcrum of information, discussion, and debate where all can be informed by and interact with the highest offices of our government here in St. Kitts and Nevis. The founding father and third presidents of the United States of America, Thomas Jefferson, is credited to have said, "Where the press is free, and every man can read, all is safe." Indeed, here in our beloved St. Kitts and Nevis, a beacon of democracy, we have taken it a bit further. For not only is our press free, but through forums such as this, your government is giving every citizen and resident the opportunity to be one's own reporter, giving everyone the means to ask the questions on the topics most concerning to him or her. This unprecedented, unfettered, live access to the highest offices of our country's administration is all part and parcel of my administration's good governance agenda. On this forum, we keep the public well informed on a wide range of issues of national, regional, and international concern. For the past several episodes, we have focused exclusively on the ever-present danger of COVID-19, our responses to the existential threat, and our plans for the quickest and most robust recovery. As a country, St. Kitts and Nevis has fared better than most in our handling of the pandemic. We have done so because of our early preparedness, decisive actions, our natural resilience willed to us by our forebears, the sense of shared responsibility, and the all-of-society approach with which we continue to fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. For the most part, we all became our brother's keeper, and the successes we gained together are clearly evident. We have the lowest number of COVID cases of all independent states in our region. All our cases are fully recovered, and we thank God that here in St. Kitts and Nevis, no one has died from COVID-19. It is in this regard of being our brother's keeper that we tonight give pause to our own challenges, to give thought, prayers, and support to our OECS and CARICOM brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This week, the big issue continues to be the volcanic eruption at La Soufrière in the north of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That eruption last Friday, April 9th, has caused the evacuation of about 20,000 persons, principally from the red zone, to other areas in the south of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It has created a Herculean challenge for the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and indeed our Caribbean region. It certainly exposes further the vulnerability of our region to issues of climate change, and in particular, natural and even man-made disasters. Today is the 42nd anniversary of the eruption of La Soufrière volcano in 1979. Today I'm advised another eruption occurred at La Soufrière. Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, speaking to the media recently said, and I quote, "The eruptions are not over, and if history is any guide, the eruptions will be continuing for the coming months. In 1979, it was about 2.5 months before the people got the all clear, and in 1902, the volcano apparently erupted for over 8 months." End of quote. Prime Minister Gonsalves conceded that with about 20,000 people expected to be internally displaced for possibly months, it is not financially sustainable for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He went on to say that COVID-19 has already dealt a serious body blow to the economy and it is not sustainable for his country to be in COVID protocol and partially shut down because of the volcano, and at the same time housing tens of thousands of people. He continued, "We have had some warning and put some money aside, but certainly not enough to house this quantity of people for that period of time. We are going to rely increasingly as time goes on our development partners and our friends and allies," end of quote. St. Kitts and Nevis is a genuine ally of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I love St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we as a people have been moved to provide a comprehensive humanitarian response. Many persons have congratulated St. Kitts and Nevis for the comprehensive response it has provided to St. Vincent and the Grenadines at this time of crucial need. Some ask how we were able to do so much at this time. We were able to do so because we had the strongest fiscal balance in the region before COVID-19 hit us in March of 2020. We had saved by then for the proverbial rainy day. Clearly, it is challenging for all of us, but we are good Samaritans in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have offered the following support to St. Vincent and the Grenadines: financial assistance in the sum of $1 million to assist with the evacuation and resettling of the citizens and residents of St. Vincent and the Grenadines from the danger zone around the volcano; to host families of 2 or 3 members evacuated from the danger zone, totaling not more than 300 persons. Our technical team, of course, would determine the requirements for entry, including COVID-19 protocols such as vaccination. Yesterday, Prime Minister Gonzalez indicated that the majority of the evacuees wanted to remain in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Our financial contribution then will go some ways in them staying there. We offered to provide human resources through the Regional Security System, RSS, recruited from our defense and police forces to support humanitarian activities, provide technical support, and conduct peacekeeping efforts underground in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We committed to release to the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency the sum of $20,000 towards its Special Emergency Assistance Fund in order to bring further relief to St. Vincent and the Grenadines and to support some of its logistical operations. Our National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has been tasked with coordinating the national response to the need list provided by the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So far, NEMA has done an exceptional job, and its director will give further information on the support mobilized so far. The Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has communicated his sincere appreciation, as have the citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines living there and here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We are privileged here in St. Kitts and Nevis to be able to help, and for this we thank God. We are reminded often that it is so much better to give than to receive. Some here have asked why in our own time of difficulty and challenge brought on by COVID-19, and when some of our own people are experiencing hardships, we are giving resources to others. We are to be reminded by the good book to do unto others as we would have done unto us. What would it say of us in St. Kitts and Nevis if we aren't willing to give a starving man some or all of our meal because we don't want to be hungry for a day. The real test of love, humanity, fellowship, and giving is not in the parting with the excess, but with parting with what is needed for the sake of one's fellow man. It is important for us to be there for our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which is a member of the OECS and of CARICOM. I know that we would want them to be there for us if and when our time of trial comes. Indeed, we are both volcanic islands, and it could have easily, but for the will of God, been us. In fact, we have 2 volcanoes within our shores, so we can have it twice over. A moral duty outlined in the good book of Acts, chapter 20, verse 35 says, "In all things I have shown you, that by working hard in this way, we must help the weak and remember the words of the Lord Jesus, how he himself said, 'It is more blessed to give than to receive.'" Galatians 6 verse 2 says, "Bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ." And finally, at Hebrews 13 and 16, it is written, "Do not neglect to do good and to share what you have, for such sacrifices are pleasing to God." Yes, Kittitians and Nevisians are by nature like good Samaritans. All of us are vulnerable. St. Kitts and Nevis had its past volcanic eruption. While it is a distant way back, our volcano can be activated. We must do the best and be the best that we can be at all times. Apart from our moral duty, our Eastern Caribbean Currency Union needs fully functioning economies for its financial stability. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is an important member of the Currency Union. Its challenges represent a further setback to its recovery and that of the sub-region as a whole. Unless we are prepared to be our brother's keeper, the international community will not take us seriously and will be less likely to help when we are not willing to help our kith and kin. Our diplomat on the panel is Dr. Didicus Jules, and he may have something to say about this tourism. The situation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is not the issue alone. In my view, it is a regional issue, nay, a global issue. As a region, we have a duty to stand with our brothers and sisters and provide them with support at a time of vulnerability and need. As a region, we are in this together. As a region, we will get through it together. I am pleased, as the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, to acknowledge that in less than a week, St. Kitts and Nevis has mobilized a substantial and comprehensive response to the situation facing the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Apart from my government, the rest of our society has responded well. Last evening I visited NEMA and thanked scores of young men and women who were helping to sort supplies for 2 containers earmarked for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. One was a 40-foot container, the other was a 20-foot container. Imagine, notwithstanding our small size, we could so quickly put a large quantity of food and non-food items identified by the government of St. Vincent and Grenadines on their list of needs, including baby food, water, feminine napkins, pampers, etc. Let me publicly commend Mr. Abdia Samuel, who is here tonight, Director of NEMA, for an excellent mobilization since the meeting of the Mitigation Council held last Friday. I want to thank all persons and St. Kitts and Nevis who have supported this major humanitarian response. We collectively are being a blessing to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We offer hope to them that they are not alone. I am certain that our God is pleased with us. Permit me just for a moment to say a word on the COVID-19 pandemic. This, of course, is our most significant challenge, and indeed, the most significant opportunity available to us is in defeating the COVID-19 pandemic. Given the effective management of the COVID-19 pandemic by our Team Unity government, it can be easy to forget that this global pandemic still grips the world. In our federation, we go about our daily lives relatively easy. In other countries, they are still in lockdown, with police patrolling the streets to arrest and caution those who break the curfews and other laws. Here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we send our children to school, but children in other countries must still stay at home because of COVID-19. Everyone in our federation can receive a free vaccination, but in other countries, people have to wait their turn. That is, if there is any vaccine for them at all. Globally, I must remind the citizens and residents, vaccines are scarce. I want to urge our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis to get vaccinated now that we have vaccines available. Ignore the propaganda. Our economy is driven in a significant way by tourism. We saw last year the serious impact that arises from having no tourists at all. Our hotel closed, persons lost their jobs, our Severance fund has unprecedented claims, and the federal government has had to supplement the fund. As part of our plan to protect your jobs and to protect our economy, we must ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis is as ready as we can be to welcome tourists. We will do all we can to make sure that St. Kitts and Nevis is the best managed state. When the tourists are ready to travel again in large numbers, COVID-19 safety will be crucial in deciding where they take a vacation. St. Kitts and Nevis must be their first choice. Our federation will be ready to welcome back tourists when the time is right. We want our cruise ships to return this summer to create work for our taxi operators, our hair braiders, those at our souvenir shops, those working at Caribel Batik, Grimson Hill, Black Rocks, Carambola, Port Zante, etc., to name some of the beneficiaries of cruise tourism. All of these workers and service providers should get themselves vaccinated now so they can be ready long before the cruise passengers arrive. It is important that we get as many people vaccinated as quickly as we can. Those who work in tourism, and indeed all of us, must get vaccinated as a matter of urgency. The more people who are vaccinated, the safer persons feel about traveling, studying, and investing in St. Kitts and Nevis. It was our safety which brought MSR Productions here, and with it, we will benefit from 6 movies. It was our safety that brought Below Deck to host several guests at Park Hyatt here in St. Kitts. And it is our safety that brought back 650 Ross University students to St. Kitts. Getting herd immunity means our economy can be fully opened up. It means more jobs can be created and more opportunities will arise, especially for our young people and others looking for work. We got vaccinated then to put our people back to work. Some people say the vaccine is a concern. In my view, they are playing political games, putting their own selfish needs ahead of the health of the people. In my view, there is nothing more concerning than having no jobs. Vaccinate to make it easier to secure and maintain your job. There is nothing more concerning than catching the COVID-19. There is nothing more concerning than jeopardizing your health or the health of your family and friends. I therefore ask that you vaccinate to protect yourself and your family. This is why it is important that all persons are inoculated. This is our part to get back our lives together again. This is the part to hosting the CPL Games, to hosting music festival, Independence, Carnival, etc., you name them. It is the pathway to more functions being held, with greater spending in the economy, with more persons making a serious living. It is the pathway to the stronger and safer future. And it is the pathway to more freedom in determining crowd sizes at events, including at our church and sports meets. Tonight, to help us better understand what is happening in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I have invited an eminent panel of knowledgeable persons to join me. I want to join Jackie in welcoming our panelists tonight. Dr. Didicus Jules is our Director General at the OECS Commission in St. Lucia. I consider him a regional public servant, a man with a tremendous passion and concern for Caribbean people. Miss Elizabeth Riley is the Acting Executive Director at CDEMA in Barbados. That entity is critical to our efforts at developing resilience and, of course, responding to member states in times of disaster. And I wish to especially welcome her. Mr. Abdias Samuel is no stranger. He is our disaster coordinator at NEMA in St. Kitts. I want finally to say thank you again for the thousands of persons who have tuned in across the many platforms of ZIZ broadcasting. I know you will find tonight's edition of Leadership Matters informative. I anticipate a lively discussion and thank you again for tuning in. May God continue to bless us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. We'll now hear from Abdias Samuel, who is the National Emergency Disaster Coordinator at the National Emergency Management Agency, also known as NEMA.
Good night, Jackie, and thank you very much for the introduction. And I want to say a pleasant good night to all the listeners via the various media platforms and those who are listening via radio and watching on television. I want to thank the Honorable Prime Minister for the opportunity to address the general public on leadership matters tonight. I also want to take the opportunity to recognize the other members of this panel, in particular, my good friend and colleague, Ms. Elizabeth Riley, Acting Director of CDEMA, and also Dr. Didicus Jules, Director General of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. I first want to commend the response, the patriotic spirit-led response by our citizens, residents, corporate society, and the ordinary person in St. Kitts and Nevis. Since getting the information of the explosive eruption of La Soufrière volcano in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the National Mitigation Council for the National Emergency Management Agency would have met on Friday the 9th. And in the discussion, the Mitigation Council came with a two-phase approach to the response in support of the people and government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. However, I must commend the Honorable Prime Minister as the Minister with responsibility for national security for listening to the technical advice granted, which led to the comprehensive plan, response plan for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And what was this comprehensive response plan? The Prime Minister would have outlined the number of contributions that would be made to CDEMA and also to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, along with the relief supplies drive that was experienced over the past few days. On Saturday, we were informed by CDEMA, due to the Memorandum of Understanding with Tropical Shipping, there was a vessel that would be leaving St. Kitts on Tuesday and would arrive to St. Vincent on Wednesday. We then mobilized to ensure that we can get some relief supplies to our colleagues and friends and people affected in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I am pleased to say that to date we received 264 contributions, totaling $150,000 worth of supplies, relief supplies, which include water and non-perishable items, along with hygiene kits and other relief supplies. It is critical that we recommend the Red Cross and all those who contributed, in particular corporate partners such as the RAM Group of companies, who would have contributed over $40,000 worth of food and relief supplies for the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Equally so, I must recognize OD Brisbane and Tropical Shipping, and also the Quarry Breweries, amongst many other corporate partners who stepped up to the plate to assist in this regard. But equally so, I must recognize the ordinary citizens who came to NEMA and brought their bits and pieces and made their contribution. Equally so, the Red Cross must be recognized at this time for bringing together a number of young persons to assist in the packing of these containers and also the packaging of the goods that were received at NEMA. I commend you. Thank you very much for your contribution. We continue to stand in solidarity with the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And in this regard, we have recommended to the Cabinet, and the Cabinet has approved a committee that will be led by Social and Community Development in putting together the plan for receiving the 300 displaced persons from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This will be comprised of individuals from many agencies, such as the Ministry of Finance, the Department of Labor, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health, private sector, from the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, the Red Cross, the NEMA, Nevis Disaster Management Department, and many other agencies that are listed. However, it is critical for citizens and residents to understand that the clear and present danger of volcanic hazards, as mentioned by the Prime Minister, are here in St. Kitts and Nevis, with volcanoes that are dormant but can become alive in the Mount Liamiga mountain and also at Nevis Peak. It is important for you to know that if any of these volcanoes have to erupt, Nevis will have to be evacuated completely. However, St. Kitts and Nevis is zoned in many ways in which we can respond. We have a volcanic hazard map that guides that response, and we also have a mass evacuation plan that is in draft form, and we continue to update. So citizens and residents, rest assured that we will continue to prepare if any eventuality may have to occur. However, it's critical for me to also notify you that we still have the hurricane season fast approaching, the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season. The Colorado State University has already forecasted that this season has been classified as an above average season, with 17 named storms, 8 hurricanes, 4 that can be major, and it only takes one, however, to to impact us severely. Dear citizens and residents, we are going to continue our efforts to support the people and government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we also have to do our best to continue to prepare for the hurricane season in St. Kitts and Nevis. With that said, Honorable Prime Ministers and members within the panel, I thank you and I look forward to our healthy discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samuel. We're now going to hear from one of our two regional guests. First, we're going to hear from Elizabeth Riley, who is the Acting Executive Director of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, also known as CDEMA. Ms. Riley?
Good evening, Madam Moderator. And first of all, I want to extend my thanks to the Honorable Timothy Harris, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, for the very kind invitation that he's extended to CDEMA to participate in this evening's program. I also want to thank the government and people of St. Kitts and Nevis for their tremendous generosity to St. Vincent and Grenadines at this time, and also the generous support provided to the CDEMA Coordinating Unit to ensure that we're able to continue our operations in support of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I think this very much demonstrates the national level commitment as well as confidence in CDEMA and the regional system. And Honorable Prime Minister, I thank you. I also want to say a special good evening to my fellow panelists, Dr. Didicus Jules, with whom I've been coordinating very closely over this period, and also to Mr. Abdias Samuel, the National Disaster Coordinator and the leader at NEMA, who is, as he indicated, a very good friend, and we work extremely well together. Good evening also to all listeners. I want to start by saying that we express our solidarity with the government and the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines at this time. It is indeed a challenging time. And I think it reminds us as individuals and citizens of Caribbean states that we live in a region that has multiple hazards. And even though these hazards can impact us individually, what we are seeing more and more is that the hazards are impacting us in compounded ways. So in the instance of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we are experiencing COVID-19, volcanic eruption, concerns for dengue fever at the time that the eruption took place. And of course, as Mr. Abdias Samuel mentioned, we have the upcoming hurricane season in just 6 short weeks. And this offers a significant level of complexity as to how we are going to address issues of disaster management and resilience going forward. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the update today is that we have 85 shelters open, just under 4,000 shelterees, and a number of persons who are staying with friends and family. As the Honorable Prime Minister indicated, approximately
Okay, we are having some technical difficulties with that connection, but technology sometimes comes with its own surprises. So I think at this stage, until we're able to rectify that, we can hear from Dr. Didicus Jules, who is the Director General of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, or OECS. Dr. Jules?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I would like to, first of all, express thanks to Prime Minister Harris for inviting me to attend this meeting, and also to recognize my fellow panelists, Ms. Liz Riley from DEMA. As is indicated, we've been working extremely closely together throughout this period. And I think one of the most important things that listeners need to recognize is the fact that this action has come on the heels of COVID, which provides a situation of great complexity. As we know, with an evacuation, people have to be brought together in emergency shelters. That has to be done while still maintaining protocols and being aware of the challenges that we face with COVID. We've seen several new iterations of the pandemic emerging in many of the member states. And as Liz indicated, we are on the verge of a new hurricane season. So the prospects and the complexity of this period are immense, and I don't think anyone should overlook this. The big lesson for us at the OECS is for us to maintain absolute solidarity with each other in the period. None of us can weather these challenges alone or by ourselves. And it is only by the display of the kind of generosity that we have seen from the government and people of St. Kitts and Nevis in the last few days, with the speed of the response that has come from member states of the OECS as well as our sisters and brothers in the wider CARICOM, that we are going to see this through. It should be also a lesson to us that while the explosion of the eruption has happened in St. Vincent, it is not contained within St. Vincent alone. I'm sure everyone would have seen on social media the fact that for the last 2 days, the people of Barbados have hardly seen the sun. It is almost like 4-day morning for them in broad daylight because of the effect of the cloud of dust from the eruption, what it has had on the climate in Barbados. So we don't live in isolation from each other, and I think the big lesson for that is how we work together. The OECS, our job has been very simple. We are simply there as a regional organization to support the regional agencies who have the specialization to real emergency situations. So we are following the lead established by CDEMA and the national disaster agencies. Our function in this context is to mobilize resources to meet the immediate emergency and medium-term support needs of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. To that end, in the last few days, we've been in constant touch with the heads of government. We had a heads of government meeting yesterday, at which all of the heads pledged their continuing support. They received updates. There have been some new developments in the plans that we had laid since December, because the first meeting of the OECS heads planning for the eventuality of an eruption happened in December 2020. But when we met again yesterday, a lot had changed, not just in terms of the events as they unfolded, but the fact that our scenario that estimated that 20,000 people had to be evacuated, and of that 20,000, with a carrying capacity of 5,000 people on island in emergency centers, with persons, approximately 8,000 persons who have relocated to the homes of friends and family. They estimate that about 7,000 St. Vincentians would have had to be evacuated to other OECS member states, and all of the member states have made commitments to house them in as comfortable a condition as possible. That not to be the scenario that we are now faced with, because most people understandably are reluctant to leave their home in a period of uncertainty, not knowing how long this crisis is going to last and what conditions they would face. So we now have had to pivot and focus on what needs to be done to help St. Vincent and the Grenadines comfortably house most of its population. So the strategy focus on health issues in relation to the pandemic. We are looking at what we need to do, first of all, in mobilizing financial and other resources in order to support the needs of the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, to also support OECS member states who may themselves be wanting to provide support. And bear in mind that we are all hit very hard by the impact of COVID on our economies. So this is not a situation where we are sharing what we have. It is a situation where we are sharing the little that we have and some of what we don't even have, to be frank. So our role in the Commission is to move as quickly as we can to support that. We have formed a coalition of over 100 multilateral organizations, private sector organizations, foundations globally, who are committed to assisting in helping to raise the resources needed to support this effort, not only in St. Vincent, but across the OECS. Our target is $100 million to be raised. And this money, while being raised, is going to go through the account of the government of Vincent and the Grenadines, as well as the CDEMA account. So our role is largely supportive, and as the program proceeds, I can give more details. But the key thing here is that coalition, a global coalition of support for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I can tell you in the course of just today, in less than 12 hours, just putting out the initial appeal for support, we received from small donations, we have received pledges of $10,000 within a space of 6 hours. So I think that is indicative of the level of solidarity and people have and the commitment to support the efforts. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jules. I'm told we have Elizabeth Riley from CDEMA back on the line, so we will rejoin her and have her continue her presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I was about to speak about the importance of being guided by the science. And we really want to thank the Seismic Research Center for the sterling technical guidance they have given during this period and continue to give since the eruption is ongoing. I wanted to say a little bit about what CDEMA has been doing in support of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we were activated in December of 20 as well. And during the period January to March, we spent significant time with the team in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, predominantly remotely, working on plan refinement in anticipation of an explosive eruption. We undertook Evacuee exercise.
Okay, so that line is giving us just a little difficulty. Our technical team here at ZIZ will continue trying, but in the meantime, we're going to take a break as we usually would before we go to the phone lines, because I know quite a number of persons would like to share a word or two about the situation, offer their support to the people and government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and might have questions to ask about the situation. So we're going to take a break. Don't touch that dial, and when we return, I'll tell you just how you can participate.
What you are seeing today is a patriotic response from the residents and citizens of St. Vincent and Nevis to the people and the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Today we are preparing humanitarian supplies, water, dry goods, and also non-perishable items, along with hygiene kits and also sanitary toiletries. It's important that we continue to support and pray for our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
I want to say how very impressed I am this evening to have come and to witness firsthand the very effective and efficient manner in which NEMA, our National Emergency Agency, has been able to mobilize a broad cross-section of support for the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I want to thank all the donors who have helped us to be able to, within a very short period of time, to stock 2 containers of supplies going to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Well, we're very pleased with the contributions that our citizens have made in very short notice to assist those who have been displaced in St. Vincent, and we are happy to be able to make this contribution.
What is very enlightening and really heartwarming for me is to see how the citizens, ordinary citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, have stepped up to the plate. They heard the clarion call that was made by NEMA, and they have come forward to support this national response.
I want to thank the Red Cross and the young volunteers in particular who have come out today to help with the sorting and the packing and the real good spirit of goodwill that we see exhibited this afternoon by a people caught and shocked by the extensive nature of the destabilization of St. Vincent and the Grenadines occasioned by the volcanic eruption. I feel very good that things are moving and that St. Kitts and Nevis, in an organized way, is making a most positive contribution to the settling of the evacuees in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Welcome back to this special edition of Leadership Matters, which is hosted by Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris. My name is Jacqueline Bryan, and I'm your host this evening. This evening, Prime Minister Harris is joined by Abdia Samuel, who is the National Emergency Disaster Coordinator at NEMA, which is the National Emergency Management Agency right here in the Federation, as well as the Acting Executive Director of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, also known as CDEMA, Elizabeth Riley. In addition to the Director General of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, Dr. Didicus Jules. The Organization of Eastern Caribbean States is also known as the OECS. And this is the point at which we take your calls, queries, and concerns, as well as suggestions. The numbers for you to dial in order to participate in the program are 466-2666, 662-8674, 767-4765, and the international line is 1-239-645-4500. We also have two WhatsApp numbers on which you can participate. You can send messages to 661-5683, that's 661-5683, as well as 660-7168, 660-7168, and voice notes can be sent to that number as well. We are going to be taking your messages a little later on, but first, let's go to the phone lines. Welcome to Leadership Matters. Good evening. Unfortunately, we lost that call. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. Hello, good evening. You're live.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Okay, good night, my wonderful Prime Minister and others. What a Prime Minister, I told you, none like you. And for what good gesture to help out your colleague in time of trouble. When your neighbor house on fire. Don't mind we hearing all kind of fussing now. You is the man with the money. If they don't want you, no problem. They will better hold on to you. Other country will glad for you. If your vaccine was special, because you are special, people see you doing good, stop abuse you, and give you credit for once. Some countries demonstrate for raise of pay. Some pay cut. They better learn a lesson. What happened to here? If you're giving away money, work, put up their money, and stop behave like foul every day when they lose their head. Look at the amount of things we were seeing that going away. I asked a question last week. I did not get an answer. I don't know if Mr. Samuel can answer. If workers who willingly take the vaccine and who foolishly don't want to take, if they can mingle, it will be unfair. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your contribution. We'll take another call.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Yeah, well, good evening, Mr. PM, our regular Tuesday night meetings. This question is for Mr. Samuel. I did gather from the introductions that there was some reluctance of the Vincentians to leave St. Vincent. But just in case, there's some that did take up the offer of the 300 individuals who could come to St. Kitts, where exactly did you plan to host them or house them, for one? And is there any possibility that the Fort Thomas Hotel could be prepared in such a way that it could accommodate some of the Vincentians in case they came here? Thank you.
Much, sir, for participating in this evening's program. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Yes, hello, good night. Good night to the lovely panel. Good night, Prime Minister. Good night, Abel Samuel. Abel Samuel, I know you know me, but it's Granny. Right? I want to commend you directly on the wonderful job that you're doing. And I want you to keep it up along with Dr. Laws and Shane there. Yes, we spoke a couple times. Yes, I want to thank NEMA very, very, very much for the wonderful job they do towards, issuing out food. The general public in St. Kitts that donate, I want to thank you all very, very, very much for doing such a wonderful job. Prime Minister, I know that I leave it for the last. In your speech, you said we must listen some the propaganda them that are out there. But I heard a kind of thing that, I second it in a way that I think is a good thing. Somebody was telling me after the government workers take the vaccine, the general public more or less can't enter into the places them such as like Inland Revenue, Post Office, unless they take the vaccine. And I think that is a very, very good idea if it is true, right? Because what? I don't got people coming by my bus and telling me, but Granny, if you ain't take a vaccine, we ain't jumping in your bus, So I'm waiting for my second dose now to staple up my paper and top the glass, Right? And people out there saying, oh, what the vaccine do to them and wherever the case may be. But when I put this on my status, people think that I was joking. My mother takes she vaccine the Friday, and the Saturday my mother cut down my sugar apple tree in the yard, but she gets strength. Right? And I tell her I hope when she take the second dose, she cut down she pear tree, because she cut down my apple tree. I want the general public go out there and just take your vaccine. Even the bus drivers them, because the teacher don't come and tell me, Granny, if children start to go on field trips and so, as long as the bus drivers them ain't take the vaccine, you can't carry the children them. And I said that's a good idea. Right? And if that is what you're going to come to, let you come to that. Abia Samuel, y'all keep up your good work. Sorry for the mishap in St. Vincent, and no, the government here will really lend a helping hand. And Prime Minister, me going to tell a lie. Amaze one person, right? If you hear me, going to get jacket and never see Abel Samuel yet, and he could tell you, maybe he done had some, talkings in words thing. Y'all are doing a very, very good job, and keep it up. Take it from Granny. If you hear me say so, I mean it. Good night.
Thank you so much for using the opportunity to share your gratitude with us, caller. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Good night. Let me just turn my volume down. Give me 1 second there. Okay, we're good to go. Yeah, also good night to the panelists. And as usual, this is Bucky Got It. And I'm coming to you from the voice of the people, because many persons are afraid to call in. So they use my media to get to Leadership Matters, because leadership really matters. Now, PM, good night, as usual. Now, your government has given $1 million for assistance to St. Vincent. Has any other country given such substantial amount for assistance? And I'll move on. Are you expecting to have persons here in St. Kitts from St. Vincent? If so, where will they stay? Will they need to be vaccinated before they arrive? If not, when they arrive, will they be able to be vaccinated while they are here? How many persons you expect are living here? Because I'm sure you have some St. Vincent are living here right now in St. Kitts. So do you have an average amount of persons? If so, will they be able to have their families or friends come over and stay with them? Because remember, it's a crisis right now in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and assistance would be needed. Now, let's look at NEMA. You really have to give thanks to NEMA. I mean, Mr. Samuel spoke very eloquently about the fast assistance, and they have, in a quick time, able to pack two, not one, two containers with supplies that going to St. Vincent. And me too want to thank all the persons who have contributed in this aid for St. Vincent. And the last, just a little bit off of it. Now, persons are saying, well, Prime Minister, you're really a great man. You're really showing leadership. Now, you've been able to send $1 million to St. Vincent. But what about the severance per year? What is the status of it? Could you give an update, maybe in your wrap-up, about the severance pay? And I know you will continue to look after St. Kitts and Nevis because you are a true leader. And this is Buck Garrett and Bucky Garrett. Over now.
Thank you so much for your contribution, your regular contribution to the program. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. Good evening. Okay, unfortunately we lost that call, but I'm encouraging you to try again. Welcome to Leadership Matters. Good evening, you're live.
I am on again?
Yes, ma'am, you're on.
Oh, what a man. Prime Minister, I can't even find words to describe you. I hope all the abusers and a minister and sugar money program every day hear what good you're going to do for St. Vincent and stop abuse. More the abuse, more will be there to do. You was with them, so the corruption spell alike. Don't mind how much seat is the good you're doing. You did not get there by mistake. They wanted you. If you walk out, there was only pretending, putting on a show. And Mr. Brantley did not have to come down. Let them give you a break. To all my away friends listening, my cousin Vincent always listen, and Miss Unity. I want to wish my twin brother belated birthday, Mr. Iret McCall from Mansion. Thank God for our spare life. Culture stay good. God bless. Get home safely all. Harris again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your contribution to the program. We don't have any additional calls at this time. I think we can respond to the questions we've gotten so far. The first being, if workers, I think this is a question we addressed at the last program. Maybe she didn't hear the response, but this is another opportunity for her to get her question answered. Can workers who do not take the vaccine mingle with others? We just have to decide who's in the best position to respond to that.
Okay. As it is now, we advise that persons continue to abide by the protocols. The protocols largely require one to wear masks once outside, one to do frequent sanitization or washing of hands, and to maintain social distance. I think the caller was leading to the fact that now that the vaccination rollout has started, that has become the new norm, and certainly it is becoming the new norm. Every worker at every workplace should take immediate step to be vaccinated. It certainly will not do good to have some persons deliberately refusing to take the vaccine. There is no medical reason that they can present why they should not, while at the same time those who are working diligently have opted to take the free vaccines. So we really want to encourage as many persons in every workplace to go out and to take the vaccines. The vaccines are now free, and they certainly globally are very scarce. It means at some period of time no vaccines will be available. We will have no one to blame but ourselves. And so I want to urge again, in the spirit of the all of society approach, that everywhere, in our churches, in our workplaces, in our homes, we encourage and insist that every person who is eligible to be vaccinated should go get vaccinated. It is our passport, if you will, to the economic recovery that we need, to put our people back to work, to improve growth, to improve the fiscal arrangements of the government, and to put us in a position to deliver on the stronger and safer future which we promise. So I offer a word of encouragement and say everyone should.
Mr. Samuel?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. And I want to continue on what the Prime Minister is saying, because today in the National COVID-19 Task Force meeting, this was one of the topics that we discussed at length. For example, I have been receiving a lot of concerns raised by persons who would have already vaccinated. Mr. Samuel, what about me who have taken the road of being safe, vaccinating, and someone who refuses to vaccinate? Should I work in the environment with this individual? Is it selfish of this individual to have me in such a high-risk environment, work environment, while I am trying to do the best thing to ensure that I keep safe? And it's a difficult question to answer. And the best thing to do is, as the Prime Minister advised, get everyone to vaccinate so that we can have a safe working environment. Because one of the things we are seeing out of best practices or lessons being learned is that the demand on the tourism sector is going to become dependent on persons being vaccinated. For example, there are tourists who are saying, listen, unless individuals are vaccinated, I don't want them to serve me. So at the end of the day, if we do not vaccinate and get ourselves in this competitive market up and going, we may find ourselves heading into a socio-economic suicide by our own doing. Again, we want to encourage persons not to be selfish, but rather to look at it holistically, comprehensively, and understand the importance that of what you are doing for yourself first and the country after. So it's critical. There is nothing at the present moment in terms of regulating persons to vaccinate, but it has to come down to that individual responsibility. And at the end of the day, the state will have to do something in order to protect its citizens. So please do your best in the work environment for us to remain relevant, competitive in our tourism market in particular, and otherwise for us to sustain. As the Prime Minister would have indicated, today we discuss matters such as the sporting community. They are requesting more spectators. If you want to be a spectator, and you are vaccinated, can we increase the spectatorship in these sporting activities? And I will say yes. For example, we see that Culturama 47 has been approved in principle by the Cabinet, and we are hopeful that this event can also motivate persons. If you are vaccinated, can I attend a jump-up session? Can I attend one of the Calypso competition? Can I attend one of the shows? So we want to create opportunities for persons to understand the importance of vaccinating and keeping each other safe, not only in the workplace, but also in our society. Thank you, John.
And I think that ties into the question or suggestion about if civil servants are vaccinated, should members of the public who are not be allowed into their offices?
Well, I'm happy that you have raised this, because I am certain my fellow panelists, Ms. Riley and Dr. Didicus Jules, can probably chime in from the regional perspective, because when I first traveled to Colombia, I had to have the yellow fever shot and present that card for me to be able to travel to Colombia. So the world may be moving in that direction in order for persons to be protected. So we have to prepare for that, and it's critically important. For example, we had a young lady who needed to travel, and she said, I didn't take the vaccine, but she had an emergency, and what she had to do is go take the vaccine in order to access care outside of the country. So you have to understand that the country, the world in itself, is moving in this direction of being vaccinated in order to access basic needs and services.
But I don't know if Dr. Jules or Ms. Riley would like to have a word where that is concerned from a regional perspective.
Well, I would simply like to add to what he said that it's quite correct. In the past, pre-COVID, travel to certain parts of the world certainly required that you have smallpox, yellow fever, a number of inoculations. And if you recall, it's been a long time, but I recall has been a vaccine passport in which all of these inoculations were entered. We were inoculated in primary school against some of these diseases. So it is nothing new. It is simply that because COVID has come as a pandemic, it has hit the world very hard, and it's down our economies. So there's a lot of ado about it. I think what is critical to recognize too is that our capacity as small states to recover from this is going to be dependent on our ability to achieve herd immunity. And I'm not a medical doctor, but just speaking from where I sit and seeing the challenges that our governments face with the economies, we are among the 10 most tourism-dependent economies in the world. We really do require to look not just at saving lives, but how do we maintain livelihoods? And the way forward for that is to ensure that as significant a portion of the population as possible is inoculated. Seychelles, by the way, about almost 2 weeks ago was the first country in the world to achieve herd immunity. And at the OECS, we've been very closely following what their experience has been. It has enabled them now to start to rejig their economy, get their tourism back on track in a very safe manner, but still maintaining protocols of care and attention.
So much, Ms. Riley. Okay, we're going to Ms. Riley.
Thanks, Madam Moderator. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So yes, I'm happy to chime in on this point. CDEMA chairs a regional group which monitors the COVID-19 situation and makes recommendations on how we move forward. And just three things. One is that in the United States, our people are our most valuable resource. Can you hear me?
Hearing you.
Okay, so I was saying that in small island states that our people are our most valuable resource, and it is very critical that we protect our people. Secondly, COVID-19 is going to be with us for a while. I think this is what all of the experts globally have made very clear to us. And therefore, we have no choice but to protect ourselves. And thirdly, the benefits of taking the vaccine far outweigh the risks. And this is scientifically proven. So we really encourage our Caribbean persons to take the vaccine, protect yourself, protect your families. Thank you.
So much. And I think the interesting point that was raised is we've spoken about herd immunity for the country, and this evening we're now hearing about regional herd immunity, which is very important for intra-regional partnership and cooperation to continue. We have another question that asked about the relocation of persons from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Where will they be relocated? Where will they be housed if they were to come to St. Kitts and Nevis? And the follow-up was if the Fort Thomas Hotel could be used in that regard.
Madam Moderator, we have identified when the Honorable Prime Minister and his cabinet agreed to the recommendation of the technical team, we were mobilized and we identified some partners in society which I wish to highlight. The Koi Hotel, when they were engaged, and this humanitarian assistance that we want to provide to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, made available 70 rooms that can accommodate 2 to 3 individuals. The St. Kitts Marriott Hotel came forward as well, and I want to thank them for also identifying 30 rooms that can be used to assist these individuals. And equally so, Sugar Bay Club, in discussion with the Marriott group of, the Rams group of companies, also indicated that 30 rooms would be available. So that totals 130 rooms on St. Kitts. On Nevis, our colleagues on Nevis have indicated that approximately 30 rooms have been made available from one of their hotels on Nevis. So in total, the Federation has identified 160 rooms that can accommodate individuals. However, we are also advocating for individuals to be persons who are interested, citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, as well as Vincentian residents who are here, and they want to accept their families of displaced persons from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that they can do so. They can register at NEMA, and then they will be consulted by the team that we are putting together. So that is the approach in the plan or the strategy that we have for accepting displaced persons from St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Responding to that question, I think you answered another question by another caller. What about the Fort Thomas Hotel?
The Fort Thomas Hotel, based on the consultation done with the technical engineers, they have indicated that this facility is not suitable to be utilized for housing individuals.
Thank you so much for that. We also have a question asking if the contribution made by the government, if any other country has been able to match such a substantial amount. Can you speak to that?
Allow Dr. Jules as the regional focal point to speak to that matter, or perhaps CDEMA representative, Miss Riley, can speak to that one.
I guess in that case we can get an idea of what the regional contributions have made to this effort.
Yeah, thank you so much. CDEMA has been working very closely with our regional partners, CARFA, CARICOM Impacts, the International Organization for Migration, UNFPA, and what we have been looking at is how do we come together to provide regional level guidance on how we handle the COVID-19 component of evacuation, and that has been spearheaded by CARFA in the development of a protocol which guides countries on actions to be taken to safeguard both those persons who are displaced as well as persons who are within the receiving states. And Dr. St. John at CARFA advised me that the Council on Health and Social and Economic Development, the COSHOD, met yesterday and approved that protocol at the level of the Ministers of Health. So now it will be implemented across the states, and I think that is significant. In addition, we have been working also with our partners on a guidance document for displaced persons. And you would well remember back in 2017, we had a situation after Irma and Maria where significant numbers were displaced, and we realized that we did not have sufficient guidance in place to be able to assist states that were receiving displaced persons on looking at the broader elements of displaced. How do we work to integrate them into society and ensure that psychosocial support is provided, the social services, education, health, housing. So all of these matters are treated within the guidance document for displaced persons, and we have made those two documents available to all of our national disaster coordinators. And CARFA has certainly also shared the evacuation protocol with respect to the COVID-19 considerations with all of the chief medical officers. So a tremendous effort in a very short space of time. And I really want to thank the regional partners for the work in that regard.
Dr. Jules, anything you can tell us about the contributions of OECS member states to this situation?
Yeah. As I indicated, the role of the OECS context is to be a support mechanism to the principal partners who are CARFA and the group that Liz spoke about. We are also responsible for maintaining the political cohesion of the OECS in support of member states in situations like this. And in addition to the specific pledge made by Prime Minister Harris, the government of Dominica today disbursed $1 million EC as well to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. At the meeting yesterday of the OECS Authority, the governor of the central bank, Mr. Timothy Antoine, also indicated that through the Monetary Council, cash grants would be made to the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The figure was not disclosed because they'll have to meet to formally approve the amounts that will be dispersed. But as you know, the central bank is owned by all of the members of the Economic Union. And so each country has an account with the central bank, and the contribution to be made to St. Vincent will be coming from countries' allocations. So all of the other member states have also made pledges to provide support because, as I explained earlier, we have had to pivot from a situation where states were preparing to receive nationals of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and to host them in their member states. We now have to refocus now on what support we provide for those persons since they're not willing to travel to be comfortably housed in their own country. So that has necessitated that pivot. And that is why the cash contributions and the example set by Prime Minister Harris and our chairman, Prime Minister Skerrit, is so important. But let me also state that I want to caution people against comparing what each member state does with the other. Because the reality is that states are at different stages. People have various challenges, and so everyone is given according to their means. Just yesterday, too, we got a call from the president of the Collectivité of Saint Martin, which is the French side of Saint Martin, about since Hurricane Irma, they had been approved to become associate members of the OECS, but having been severely hit by Maria and Irma, they postponed the accession of their membership. And they're now saying that they want to reactivate their associate membership with the OECS. And the call yesterday was about what contribution can they to the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So the big effort, therefore, is to raise as much cash as possible to help with the situation. And governments are also providing as much in-kind. In the last 2 days, the big priority has been water and food supplies. So we have been mobilizing transportation. We have a barge from Guadeloupe that will be leaving tomorrow, or in fact later tonight. A very large barge that will be collecting and water in huge containers. St. Dominica is contributing about 20 containers that can hold about 20,000 gallons of water each. It's going to be going down. We have other ferries that have worked in the Grenadines that are going to be plying the waters, carrying food from the OECS member states to St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
I'm told we have a caller on the line. We'll go to the phone line, take this call, and then we return to our responses. Welcome. Unfortunately, we lost that call. Do we have any additional callers? Welcome to Leadership Matters. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. This is Vaccination again, and I'm happy that some of the questions have been answered. I know in time the rest are going to be answered. I have a few more questions. I'm going to make them short. What impact can we expect from the eruption? I mean, there are persons already complaining about the place being dusty. So I'm wondering if maybe Mr. Samuel might be best to answer this question. Now, you will direct it. But I'm really wondering what impact can we look forward to from this? And also, is there any impact with trade? Because I'm doing, as a media, I do follow other islands, and I see, I think it's in Barbados, that there is some trouble with feeding the animals and stuff like that. So I'm wondering how far away are we from St. Vincent, and what impact, again, right, can we expect in terms of whether it's going to be dark? Could we expect more ash? You know, could we expect, you know, just give me what we expect from the eruption from St. Vincent. Thank you so
much. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Yes, hello, good night.
Hi, good night.
Yes, I want to respond, or if I may ask a question, because the gentleman earlier was addressing the fact that some persons concerned to those who took the vaccine and then at the workplace. So I'm wondering, do they even consider persons who don't feel that comfortable in taking the vaccine and how their work they have been or the job they have been working at for maybe a few years, and they might lose it because of certain things that would be mandatory and they just don't feel comfortable. And in some cases, we find that some persons who did take the vaccine that felt comfortable in taking it, they also tested positive after. But my question also is just the basic questions that we have been asking all the time, and why is the vaccine being made mandatory? Is that the first one is, when we take the vaccine, does it prevent us from catching the virus after? And we know for a fact that is a no, it doesn't. It doesn't prevent the spread. It doesn't prevent you from getting it at all. So if you catch the virus, how could I protect somebody else? Or if I take the vaccine, how can I protect somebody else?
So much for your questions, caller, and for participating in this evening's program. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Good night, Jack. Good night, Ms. Brian. Good night.
Hi, good evening.
And good night to the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris. And good night to the Abia Samuel doing a good job with the task force. And to Mr. Nicholas Jules. And to the lady there from Barbados, NEMA. Want to thank you all to come educate us about the vaccine and the problem of St. Vincent. Because we all are one, brothers and sisters, one OECS people, and we got to live together as one, and whatever little we got to try to contribute. I myself will make me do my contribution, because I hate advertise over the radio every day. And I go into National Bank and put in something. Regardless to what, I got family members in St. Vincent too. We got family members all over. Even in Jamaica, whatever, in the Caribbean. Because we all are one, black people. Now, Mr. the Honorable Prime Minister, I want to commend you and your cabinet and the task force. You all is doing a wonderful job. Mr. Prime Minister, I always say you God sent. And I wouldn't stop saying so. Because with all the things you have done to this country and despite of this COVID, the amount of criticism you get from even the opposition and non-opposition, people just going from different radio stations and lambasting you as the leader of this country. But I believe that the more they talk and the more they lambaste you, the better you perform. And I want to commend you on the cabinet. You are doing a wonderful job. And but Mr. Prime Minister, you be strong. Do what you got to do for this country as the leader. And when whatever you decide to do, you do when the time comes. So I just want to commend you and the task force, because you are doing a wonderful job. And just forget about the naysayers, them who out there, who just trying to bring you down and say all kind of thing. I believe now some country could do with you, even Antigua could do with you. Because how you manage this COVID and how you manage our finance in this federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, I believe this country will in financial problem. I believe they could do well with you as the leader here for this country, the country. So, Mr. Prime Minister, you all have a wonderful night. You continue to do what you got to do. You got to remote somebody somehow, because you cannot be there all the time. You understand? And you'll be strong and just come out a winner and come out strong and do not disgrace yourself like somebody else politician who want to stay in government and stay in opposition all the days of their life. Brother, you all have a wonderful night. May God bless this federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. God bless.
Thank you so much for your contribution to the program, caller. We'll go back to the questions that we've gotten so far. And one of them asked if persons who are being relocated to St. Kitts and Nevis will have to be vaccinated prior to arriving here, or if they will be allowed to take the vaccine once they get here.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. And in the last meeting which I attended, I know the CMO of St. Vincent and the Grenadine would have indicated as that part of the criteria for persons to leave St. Vincent and the Grenadines is for them to be fully vaccinated in an effort for them to protect themselves and protect the individuals and protect the persons where they are going. So that is part of the process, and I think most countries will also make that a part of their criteria in receiving individuals. And if it is that they arrive into the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis and we have vaccine available, I am certain that we will extend that courtesy to ensure that we can protect ourselves while also protecting them so they can have access to the vaccine and be inoculated. So yes.
Mr. Prime Minister, we have a question about the contribution of St. Kitts and Nevis, and the follow-up was in relation to the status of severance payments. If you can give an update on that.
Continue to roll out. In fact, we have paid a majority of the claims that had been put. The processing, we have explained before, has taken quite a bit of time on account of the sheer volume of displaced persons, on account of the fact that several of the employers had not paid up, therefore the appropriate records, that is, records that are required for the Labour Department to do justice to the claims, those have become problematic and have created delays. There have been other cases where persons, although they had been working and although they had some payments made, they were in fact not properly documented, and those issues had to be addressed at the level of national security. All of these things now are in train and are being dealt with. We have so far spent over $25 million on severance payments. And the fund, basically, we have said repeatedly, has been depleted. It meant that the majority of those resources are coming from the federal government coffers. So we continue at maybe 1 or 2 leadership matters programs before this. I did indicate that we have also at the cabinet level undertook to increase the number of staff members working at the Labour Department and to add another shift so that more claims can be processed in a more efficient time frame. So all those things are happening and should be happening, and in due course persons will get their due. We apologize again for the delay. Delay has not been only at the level of, say, the Labour Department, but has been due to the negligence in some part of a number of employers who hadn't done right by the employees. We want to urge every employee that at regular intervals they should go to the Social Security and get printout of the contributions and payments made, so that early o'clock you can be aware whether or not your employer is paying your contributions. Contributions, one portion of it would have been deducted from your wages. When the difficulty is only discovered at the point when you are severed, of course some time will be lost. But you can be proactive about it. In fact, we have asked at the cabinet level that at regular intervals the Social Security should make those printout available to every employee. So we don't wait until there is the ultimate event, to wit the severance being triggered, for persons to find out that the employers hadn't due. The severance payment is linked to your period of work, and that is why you need a complete record to properly process a claim. When an employer doesn't file for you, it shortens the period over which you would have worked. Substantial information required for an accurate processing is not available. And when the employee comes to the Labour Department or Social Security at that point and say, well, my record is not correct. I have been working with John Brown for X period of time. I have evidence of it, so payments going to my bank, etc. Then there's a need for an investigation. The investigation is conducted by the Social Security Board here. So again, that adds to another level of delay in terms of the processing. But all in all, we are on a policy of expedition of claims, where, for example, some persons had not been appropriately documented. That is, they've been working, they have been no work permit stamped, or they've had difficulties in getting regularized because they do not have the requisite police record. Mr. Brandy has introduced a policy of leniency when that information comes to him, so that the person can get their status rectified, and that also help with the processing. So all these things are happening simultaneously.
Thank you so much for that. We'll go back to the phone lines. I'm told we have a number of calls on hold. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live. Okay, unfortunately, we lost that call. We might be able to get back in before we wrap up. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live. Hello. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Yeah, good evening to you, Jackie.
Good evening.
And good evening to the Honorable Prime Minister.
Good evening.
And good evening to the distinguished other panelists there. I just want to highlight one question there to the Prime Minister. Can we have our cruise industry partners involved in this situation where the people coming from St. Vincent here, where they can provide a ship for the people to quarantine on before they go into the hotels here in St. Kitts? At least a cruise ship got a lot of space. So if even one cruise ship brings 300 people here, they still have a lot more space to bring people. So at least they could quarantine them and then they could drop them off and then go back if they want to. I think that would be a good move. And we have space here in terms of putting people, but we just need the time to get them in the space. But I think if we have a cruise ship bringing them here and the quarantine on the cruise ship, I think that would be something that we could consider. Have a good night. Thank you and good program.
So much for your suggestion. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. Ooh, you have to lower the volume on your radio or computer or television. Whatever you're using to listen to the program, you have to lower the volume on that first. Hello?
Good night. This is Alva Pemberton. How are you, Jackie? And how is the rest of the panel? How are you, Mr. PM?
Good evening.
I just want to take this opportunity to applaud the Prime Minister on all of his efforts to help the people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. If the Prime Minister was not a meticulous and scrupulous person, we would not have that financial, fiscal ability to assist St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So therefore, I think that as a matter of fact, I also want to thank all the nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis also in all their mobilization efforts to help the donations so that they can be shipped out tonight or whenever they went out yesterday. So we all have to continue to work together, and like somebody said, that is, we are a brother's keeper, and we can add value to others by assisting them when they are down. So if St. Vincent is down now, let us try all our efforts to help mobilize as much as we can to assist them. Added to that, I want to re-emphasize and emphasize again the importance of nationals taking the vaccine, because I can't repeat it more than ever, because if I come to a restaurant, I wouldn't like the person that is serving me knowing that I'm vaccinated and they are not. If I go to a hotel, if I jump into a cab, I want to feel comfortable that the person that's driving me or the person that's serving me or the customer service representative that are taking care of me is fully vaccinated. So like I said before, I want to make sure that everybody is encouraged to take the vaccine. And like I said the other night, they should have a cutoff period so that when the cutoff period is done, then they have to pay to get it. Because right now it's free, they are reluctant to take it. Let's put a cutoff point and then have them pay for it, and I'm pretty sure that they will step up and get in the vaccine. Good night, everyone. Good night, PM. Good night, all the rest of the panel. Good night, Jackie.
Good evening. Thank you so much for your contribution to the program. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. Hello, are you there? Okay, that was our final call. Unfortunately, we didn't get to hear what the person said, but we do have a number of other questions to respond to via WhatsApp. But first, let's wrap up the questions we got by the callers. We have a question about the impact we can expect to have right here in St. Kitts and Nevis from the eruption in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I think Ms. Riley, on this point, can also tell us about what other Caribbean islands have been experiencing, neighboring islands to St. Vincent as a result. And they wanted to also know what has been the impact of the volcanic activity on trade in the region. Mr. Abdis Samuel, will you begin?
All right, so thank you, Carlo, for those very important questions. So we would have been experiencing some hazy conditions for the past 2 days. In consultation with our Met Office in St. Kitts, they have advised me that this haziness is being caused by the Sahara dust that comes off the west coast of Africa, travels across the Atlantic and into the Caribbean region. This is an occurrence that happens ever so often during the year, and when this happens, it creates this haziness because of dust particles. Also, this is also compounded by the fact that the Met Office advised me today, based on the forecast provided by the Antigua Met Office, which is the regional hub for the Northeast region, which stated that there is the potential for light ash particles to reach the Northeast Caribbean region, Antigua, St. Kitts Nevis, BVI, etc. So that is a possibility. The only impact we can receive from that is that persons who have sensitivities such as asthma, persons who suffer from wheezing or respiratory problems, they can be affected. Also understanding that volcano gases, which will travel further than the particles because they are rather light, they can also impact our region, where persons might smell sulfur-like odors, which can be a bit of a nuisance to individuals. That is a possibility in the region. What other impact we can have is the travel impact, whereby we would have seen LEAT would have suspended flights into St. Kitts and Nevis due to the challenges of the ash movement in the Windward Islands. So these are some of the impact that we have seen the transportation. I will allow Dr. Didicus Jules and Liz to be able to speak to the impact of the eruption and trade.
Tell us about some of the effects of the volcanic activity on neighboring islands, as well as its effect on trade.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I think I may leave the trade for Dr. Jules, but I can speak to the neighboring islands. And the effect is really a function of the height of the ash plume combined with the prevailing wind conditions. So the first explosion, which took place on the 9th of April, the Seismic Research Center indicated that the ash plume traveled up to 10 kilometers. And what this means is that there's a diversity of winds that would affect a plume traveling at those heights, because wind patterns are different at various levels within the atmosphere. So what we saw happening on the first plumes, which happened over Friday and Saturday, is that there was...
Unfortunately, her line seems to have dropped out, so we'll hear from Dr. Jules. Dr. Jules, can you talk to us about the effect of the volcanic activity on trade?
Well, let me say that trade was very badly hit by COVID in the first instance. And one of the challenges that we've been confronting at the OECS level is that intra-OECS trade has never been more than about 2% of the trade of the member states. So a lot of our trade has been outward looking and inward facing. And we have been, as part of the movement towards the free movement goods and services across the OECS, to increase that movement of goods and services. with the volcano now, not only has, well, sea traffic has been very limited. A lot of our sea trade has come through Miami. Now we are faced with the challenge of ensuring that we are able to redesign the routes so that our local shippers are able to do island to island trading. And with the volcano, the sea traffic has been cut off. So as you know, the airports in several of the countries have been closed up to today. The airport in Barbados, in Uranora, St. Lucia, several of the airports adjacent have been closed off. And how long this is going to last, it all depends on the impact. It's not just the visibility, but it's also the effect of the dust and what that does to the danger it poses to the engines. We are looking at this not just in terms of the current crisis, but the long-term impact of this on our economies and on our economic options. Because in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that was one of the countries in the OECS which had the most vibrant agricultural economy. In fact, just a month before the eruption, St. Vincent sold a couple hundred heads of cattle to Grenada. And now that the explosion has happened, the eruption has taken place, we have not been able to, well, people have tried to save whatever cattle they can. The government took a very quick drive to tag all of the cattle. They had to be released. One of the things we are doing at the commission level is looking beyond just some of the immediate crises that are drawing the attention of the government to longer term prospects. So how do we resuscitate, as things settle, the livestock industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which was one of the most promising and vibrant in the OECS. We're thinking of reaching out in our fundraising efforts, for example, to animal rights groups and so on, who would very happily support perhaps the bringing, aside from, because we are already dealing with food and beans, but what about cattle feed, whether that's possible, so those animals that survive the eruption are able to be fed. There's going to be a huge loss of biodiversity in St. Vincent because of the prime agricultural areas were around the base of La Soufrière, and what we see now is a total valley of desolation. So there is going to be a long road ahead for recovery, and it again brings to the fore the importance of us taking very proactive and preemptive action on some key things that may not seem that important, but when a crisis hits, we recognize those things. So for the last 4 years, we've been talking about having a seed bank that would in which would contain the genetic seeds of some of the biodiversity products that we have in the OECS, the flora, sorry, and this highlights the importance of that because a lot of it may be lost. St. Vincent, many people may not know, has some of the original stock of breadfruit from Captain Bligh, and it is breadfruit is a very powerful part of the Vincentian economy, as well as arrowroot. Now the question is, with that eruption, how much of that origin has been left, and do we have any genetic anywhere that can be used to revitalize these unique products that St. Vincent has a comparative advantage in?
A quick break, and when we return, we'll go through the rest of the questions from the callers as well as the feedback we've gotten via WhatsApp. So don't touch that dial. We'll be right back after this quick break.
The rebuilding of tourism starts with taking the vaccine.
I'm taking the vaccine for a healthy nation.
I for sure will be taking the vaccine.
I am taking the vaccine because it's the best way to get back into full swing. Stay safe.
I'm taking the vaccine for my family, for my friends, for my community, and for me.
John? Welcome back to this special edition of Leadership Matters, which is hosted by Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris. My name is Jacqueline Bryan, your host for this evening, and he is joined this evening by Mr. Abdia Samuel, who is the National Disaster Coordinator, National Emergency Disaster Coordinator at the National Emergency Management Agency that we call NEMA. He's also joined by the Acting Executive Director at the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, which we call CDEMA, Elizabeth Riley. She's joining us from Barbados, as well as the Director of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States that we refer to as the OECS, Ms. Dr. Didicus Jules, and he's joining us from St. Lucia. Now we're going to continue responding to the questions. We have had quite a number of calls, and we have a number of responses we got via WhatsApp. Mr. Prime Minister, you wanted to make an addition to a response you gave regarding the severance payment?
With respect to the severance payment, I got this information from the Labor Commissioner. A total of $25.9 million have been paid out so far. So this is a huge amount and represents one of the largest consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic for St. Kitts and Nevis, and it speaks to the large number of persons who are impacted. 1,607 severance claims have been processed to date. So 1,607 severance claims processed to the tune of $25.9 million. I spoke earlier about the Cabinet supporting an increase in the number of staff members available to assist with the processing of claims, and the Labour Commissioner, Ms. James, has advised that that additional staff is on the job and they started their work on Monday. So all that we have promised to do to help speed up the process we have done, and we hope week after week we will be able to report additional success. So again, we crave for some patience even at this difficult time, but things are looking up.
And since you're on the subject of severance payments, is it possible for you to give an update specifically from the Nevis end? We have a question via WhatsApp saying, good evening, Mr. President. It's the first year, Mr. President. We are hurting. Can you please update us on our balance of our severance benefits from the Nevis end?
Yeah, well, all severance claims are dealt with by the federal entity. There is no payment made by the NIA in terms of the settlement of the claims. Of course, deductions are made by every employer in relation to the severance fund. That amount, we are aware, has always been inadequate, and the situation worsened when the last administration took the ill-conceived decision to add the long service payments and made it compulsory that those payments should come from the fund without increasing the intake to the fund. So all claims for persons displaced in Nevis and in St. Kitts are dealt with at the federal level. The Nevis Labor Department will do the processing, send down the information for the Labor Department and Social Security to do the necessaries. And we have paid substantial claims. The Minister of Labor, Senator Wendy Phipps, has reported that. We have dealt with significant sums in relation to the Four Seasons and other entities. A number of persons have called and they have been addressed, I myself have intervened with respect to a number of persons whose cases were drawn to my attention. So, example, in one case where there was a party of two living together at the same place. One was possessed, the other was not. Once we investigated, we learned that the documentation was not in good form to be processed, and that person was not a citizen, and their passports were not up to date. And Mr. Brandy intervened, and we were able to get that particular handicap resolved, and that person's claim, I believe, by now would have been addressed. So everything that is being done through the federal entity. The NIA entity would do their own in-house work, and then they pass that information onward. So that process still happens, and a substantial number of the claims on the island of Nevis have been dealt with at this particular moment in time.
We also had a question asking what's the population of persons from St. Vincent and the Grenadines living in the Federation?
I asked the Permanent Secretary of National Security to give me an idea of that, and the estimate he would have given ranged between 270 and 300. Those, of course, would have been persons who would have properly documented themselves, whether through work permits or their residency status. There could well be a number of persons here from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but they are not appropriately documented. So we are looking at anywhere in the region to, in my view, maybe 300 to 350 persons who are here. And of course, the question was asked, would they be willing to take persons from St. Vincent? The initial response we have gotten is that some of them are, of course, willing to take, but we also have to recall that this special facilitation is being provided to persons who are being evacuated from the problematic areas in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So if you are not in a zone affected, you won't be prioritized. And I want to make it very clear that any and all persons being evacuated, if they were to come to St. Kitts and Nevis, they must be vaccinated before they are brought here. That is a policy that we have required and other member states have required. It's a policy well known to the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Once persons enter our space, they have to be quarantined. There has been no change in our quarantine regulations. Related to that, the person asks whether persons can be quarantined on cruise ships. Cruise ships, to my knowledge, are not necessarily ideal for quarantined people because of the spatial arrangements on cruise ships. And in any event, cruise ships are looking at the opening up of the cruise season, some starting in summer, if that works out well, and therefore they would not want to be tied up for a long period of time. As it is, it may well be that very little persons may come, because I reported that the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines indicated that there's a distinct and overwhelming preference by the citizens now to stay in St. Vincent, at least at this particular juncture in the activities related to the eruption. So if that holds, there will be very few. And so all the other issues about quarantine, about where they would stay, become academic issues, which right now we do not have to engage ourselves, except that if from the humanitarian point it becomes necessary, we are prepared according to our coordinator, Mr. Abdias. We have reached out to the relevant entities. And you note that he had put the question to hoteliers, and they have consented, and they have said how many rooms they are prepared to make available. We have taken note that in the not too distant future, we will be in the hurricane season, and our duty will be to preserve those shelters for those who would normally be resident there. And that is why we have avoided tying those centers up with those who may be evacuated coming into our country, and sought to find alternative suited arrangements for them.
We had questions that were in relation to what was said before about workers who didn't feel comfortable with their co-workers not having the vaccine when they took the vaccine, as well as whether members of the public who were not vaccinated should be able to enter government offices if members of the civil service were inoculated. And these questions are follow-ups to that. The person asked if you have considered persons who have not taken the vaccine because they do not feel comfortable doing so, and that there's a concern that such persons might lose their jobs as a result. The person also asked if the vaccine does not prevent a person from getting the virus, how are you then putting them at risk? Mr. Samuel?
Well, Jackie, thank you. Sorry, Madam Moderator. The reality is, let's put it in the context of what we have been saying for months now, is creating the herd immunity. And you have to contribute to that herd immunity. The vaccine protects you, the individual, from not becoming ill and dying seriously, or even dying from the virus itself. So how do you protect the individual? You're protecting the individual by first protecting yourself and ensuring that if the virus is walking within the group, in the workplace, then there's herd immunity where the virus, in simple words, will just become like a common flu, walking around individuals. So this is how, Madam Moderator, you will end up protect other individuals, in my opinion.
What about the concern that persons who don't want to take the vaccine because they're not comfortable doing so might lose their jobs? Is there anything you can say in relation to that?
I will yield to the Prime Minister now.
What I would say with this one, we certainly would want everyone to maintain their job. But we have to be serious. We are facing a very serious disease. And it is a disease that has killed millions of persons across the world. Next door in Antigua, in St. Martin, both Dutch and French, in Curacao, in Jamaica, everywhere, except St. Kitts and Nevis and Dominica at this time, COVID-19 kills. So it's that deadly. And it is therefore incumbent upon each and all of us to protect ourselves. The only protection that we have now, or the best protection, is the vaccination. We were told that a year ago. We were told that until we get a safe vaccine that was available to our people, that would eventually lead to herd immunity, that is when a significant majority of the people would have taken the vaccine, then we could, as it were, drop our guard somewhat. That others will be protected. Just as right now, mumps and measles are almost things of the past. You may have an odd case, you see someone with that. I haven't seen that in the last 10 years. But when we were going to school, we were just told, you have to go to the clinic today to be vaccinated. And we went. There was no opting out. You went. Your parents didn't intervene because they understood that it was for your good. Now, what does the medical fraternity says? The doctors have said to us, if persons are doubtful, ask their practitioner. if there is a medical reason why you should not take the vaccine, that will be respected by every employer in the country. But you have to face the reality. If I have my hotel out there, I need to ensure that I keep a safe environment. The safe environment is for every employee and for my visitors. And if visitors who are coming insist, because they who are coming are vaccinated, said, well, I can't be vaccinated and you have me interacting in your business with persons who are not vaccinated, are those persons being unfair? No. Because they are preventing themselves from being exposed. And that is why we have been saying for day one, the frontline people in particular, all of them should be vaccinated unless there's a medical reason why they should not. The taxi drivers, the hair braiders, those in our restaurants, those at our front offices, because they are going to be exposed and persons are going to be exposed to them. The employer at some point will have to make a business decision. Do I want my business to be open? If my business is to be open, I need customers. And in the marketplace, we say that the customer is always right, which means that no business continue to be successful, will continue to be successful, unless it is attentive to the reasonable demands being put to it by its customers. And so, when customers insist, I want to be served by persons vaccinated, a hotel cannot be indifferent to that. A restaurant operator cannot be indifferent to that. The taxi operator cannot be resistant to that. So you will then have to make a decision whether you are prepared for that or you're not going to provide the taxi service, because if that is what the customers want. It is nothing new. We had a similar argument when the masks came on board, where persons on the buses was saying to people like Granny and them, if you're all not wearing your mask, it is unfair. We had that week after week, that persons on the public transport need to wear their masks. And just as the person who entered the bus with their mask felt uncomfortable that someone next to them was not wearing the mask, and made an outcry in relation to it, is the same now we are having with respect to vaccine, which has become the new norm. It has become the new norm. Before, we had persons traveling, and the norm became now that if you are to travel, you had to have your negative test provided. So these things are changing. And now that we have moved into the new phase, it is vaccination. That is why every country is in a mad rush to get the vaccination program going. In America, they said they want to get this thing done till June. But could you expect that any country which would have invested millions of dollars to secure the protection of their people will open up their borders to you coming in and you are not vaccinated? So that is the reality. Just as they are saying, we will not accept you unless, for example, you had the negative test. And not only you must have the negative test, when you're on the plane and so on, you have to come with your mask and other things there to protect persons. And when you enter our country, you will have to do a quarantine. Some countries had it, you go home, you do your quarantine, and then they had to change it, like St. Vincent and the Grenadines. When the outbreak came, they shifted their regulations where you had to spend at least 10 days in a government chosen facility. And you could then do the other 4 after. But that was an upping of it, because before it was the inverse. You spend the majority of time wherever you are going. So we just have to evolve with the times. And if you have a medical reason, there is no problem. Nobody can force you. If you don't have, and it is necessary for your job, and that is why we're saying taking the vaccine is an act of selflessness, because it's not just for you. It is to give peace of mind to your co-workers. It is to protect those who you are going to. When you leave your workplace and you go home, with your young children, your old grandmother, it is to protect them. And that is why we are asking everyone, do not let it get to that far. Don't let your employer have to ask you whether or not you're vaccinated. At this time, the science, and Ms. Riley made the point, the benefits by far exceed the disbenefits or the disadvantages. And so we must all wake up to the reality, forget the negative propaganda, relate to the science. I have confidence in it, and I believe it, and I have confidence in the medical professionals like Dr. Cameron Wilkerson, like Dr. Hazel Lodge, whose wide knowledge of this I rely upon. I am not going to hear a man and a voice recording saying something bad about the vaccine and listen to eminently qualified professionals in St. Kitts and Nevis like Dr. Lodge, Dr. Wilkerson, Dr. Osborne, Dr. Sebastian, who I see and know who they are, and take the advice of persons unknown to me over them. When I heard Dr. Cameron say that 95% of the medical fraternity have already gone and vaccinated, well, why would a doctor do that if they know it was dangerous? And they should have a better intimate knowledge of this than us. Just wouldn't make sense. Why would an entire cabinet go to get vaccinated and it is dangerous? It doesn't make sense. Why would our Governor General go to get vaccinated and it is dangerous? We are not on a suicide mission, but we understand the time is now and there is a fierce urgency. The hotels want to make money, as does every other business. The hotels want to make money. For them to make money, tourists have to come. And just as they have to provide the meals and the experiences and the hotel that their customers require, equally they cannot be indifferent. Because let's face it, all of us now are more health conscious, or we should have become as a result of the COVID-19. All of us, when we travel, want to know that we are in a safe space. All of us, when we are with somebody and we hear them cough, we want to make sure that at least they are vaccinated. We want to make sure that the person next to us is at least wearing a mask. It is a new environment. And for persons to want to harp back to the old way of doing things, it will not work. And so we want everyone and more people to be on the job. We encourage persons to get vaccinated. Make it easy for all of us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. We have a question about whether or not persons coming here from St. Vincent and the Grenadines would have to be quarantined, but that was already answered. And the answer...
Till the rules are changed, and we are relying on the health experts to come back to the government. As of Monday, when we met at Cabinet, they did not bring such a recommendation. But of course, it's an evolving field. And as they study what is happening, as they study practices elsewhere, they will come back to the government and make the necessary recommendations. Quarantines have served us well, and therefore we will have to think about it properly. And yes, in the new norm of vaccination with reduced risk, we will get there, but we have not yet been advised by the scientists on whom we rely.
And this question is related to quarantine, and it asks if persons who are returning home and have tested negative for the virus and have been fully vaccinated would still have to be quarantined for 14 days. They also ask if a hotel would be assigned to them or if they would have to do that from where they are. Mr. Samuel?
Yes. The Prime Minister just clearly outlined it. The policy has not changed. The health and travel protocols are clear. Once you enter in St. Kitts and Nevis, you must quarantine for 14 days. And you will have to go to a government-designated quarantine facility. So what you have to do is visit knatravelfarm.kn, and you will find the necessary guidance there for the selection of a government quarantine facility.
And could you just mention quickly, since you spoke to that, about the difference between the quarantine and the vacation in place?
So the quarantine is basically where you go to your room or your place of abode and you stay there without accessing any type of facilities or accommodations and the property at the hotel. When you have vacationing in place, that means that you can access some of the commodities at the hotel. For example, there are strict rules and protocols in which you can maybe go to the beach, you can go to the pool, you can go to the restaurant and access some services under the strict guidance of the protocols. And you can also, at day 8, you can access the highlights of St. Kitts and Nevis, which is once you test on day 7 and you are negative, on day 8th, you can access this through a COVID-19 certified transportation. And all these sites have been verified by the task force and the medical professionals in terms of the service the staff there will provide to these individuals. So that's the difference. One is that you're going to stay in place and you cannot move from your area of abode, whether it be your room, your hotel room, or a villa or an apartment. And the other one is that you can access some of the commodities of the hotels. And then on the 8th, if you're staying longer than the 8 days and you want to access the highlights of St. Kitts and Nevis, then you can do so once you test negative.
Questions are in relation to the volcanic activity in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and questions about the volcano in the Federation. The first one asks, what are the concerns of ashfall contaminating our food source, such as fish?
And from what I had a conversation today with the Met Office and some other stakeholders looking at the potential impact of ash on the Northeast region, in particular St. Kitts and Nevis. And my understanding from my explained earlier, as Ms. Riley would have said, based on the height of the explosion, the plumes of the explosion, there's a possibility due to the different wind patterns and levels at such a height that we may receive some finer particles in St. Kitts and Nevis that may not cause no major challenges. In terms of the food, we have not looked at that assessment as yet, but I can assure you that we will have some consultation with the Ministry of Agriculture and the Met Office to look at the impact of that based on what is expected in St. Kitts and Nevis. And with the marine life, my understanding at this moment that there is no immediate threat to us in St. Kitts and Nevis when it comes to the marine life itself.
The St. Kitts and Nevis have a plan if our volcano were to become active?
Yes. We have our national disaster management plan, which encompasses the comprehensive disaster management strategy, meaning that the all-hazard approach. So in the event that we have a volcano, we have already a revised, 2018, we revised the volcanic hazard plan, hazard map, which divides St. Kitts into zones from very high to very low, using a color coding system of red, orange, yellow, and green. Green basically being the safe zone. On Nevis, we have 2 color codes because of the size of Nevis, and if an explosion has to happen on Nevis, it's recommended according to the recommendation by the UV Seismic Research Center that Nevis will have, the whole entire of Nevis will have to be evacuated. In that regard, Nevis has a mass evacuation plan in the event that we have to do that, and we also have the national mass evacuation plan in the event that we have to do any evacuation with reference to a volcanic eruption.
We have a question for our panelists from from CDEMA as well, and we'll get to that. How many countries, maybe Ms. Riley can assist with this question, how many countries are giving help to St. Vincent with regards to the situation there? Ms. Riley, could you answer that? Is she still with us? Okay.
Maybe we could ask Dr. Dew.
The call again, but we'll continue to try to reconnect with her. We also have a question, seeing as you work closely with the organization, Mr. Samuel, maybe you can tell us what the role of CDEMA is for the Caribbean.
So CDEMA is the coordinating unit that coordinates all the regional responses using all the regional and international partners. So they have what you call the CDEMA CU, the coordinating unit, whereby all the responses from the member states come to CDEMA rather than everybody just going ad hoc to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And CDEMA, in basic word, refines, prioritizes the need of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and deploy resources according to that priority list to avoid mass confusion and to avoid what you may say chaos. Now, they have what you call the regional response mechanism, and that regional response mechanism is somewhat, as we say here, an all-of-society approach, where all the regional entities are basically combined and they facilitate the coordination and movement of human resource and any type of other resource that is needed to assist the impacted state. So that is in basic words what CDEMA do, coordinates.
I know we've lost the connection with Ms. Riley from CDEMA, but could you speak to, very briefly, you already answered the last question we have here about what plans NEMA has in the event of an eruption. So we have a plan, and you outlined what the plan was. But could you speak to, aside from the threat of volcano, since we are supposed to have heightened hurricane season activity, they wanted to know what advice CDEMA have provided. So I don't know if in your ongoing discussions with CDEMA, if plans are already being made or suggestions, advice given as to what we can do in preparation for that.
Great. Thank you. Very good question. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of commitment that is required in preparation for the Atlantic, the 2021 or any hurricane season. First of all, CDEMA would have sent to its member states a checklist. We have to finish that checklist. St. Kitts and Nevis is presently working on the checklist. And the checklist verifies if you have followed a number of guidelines provided by CDEMA in terms of your level of preparedness, your level of response, and also your level of being able to recover from the impact of a tropical storm or hurricane. What we have been doing in NEMA is following the yearly guidelines. For example, we started the educational process already, so you will hear the communications about being prepared for the hurricane season. What do you need to do as a family, as a community, as a business place? We also carry out a tree cutting activity to ensure that we mitigate against the impact of tree falling on houses and damaging them. And we also continue with preparing our community workers or volunteers to be able to render assistance. But most importantly, we continue with our 10 national subcommittees, which is made up of the public sector, private sector, and our civil society. We have the Housing and Shelter Subcommittee, who has already met and have done the assessment on the shelters, emergency shelters. And they are now preparing the report to bring to the Secretariat at NEMA, which will then go to the Cabinet for the Cabinet to give final approval on these shelters. We also have other subcommittees that are presently meeting so that they can look at the level of preparedness. We will then look at having some exercises and meetings of the Mitigation Council so that we can report to Cabinet the state of preparedness that we have before or on the start of the hurricane season in June. So these are some of the activities that are undertaken. What we are asking individuals to start to prepare themselves, have a plan, develop a plan. We see what is happening in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You have to have a plan. If this happens to me, what then? Use scenario-based to develop a plan. Make sure you look at your non-perishable items that could last for a while. Some of the basic needs that you may want, such as water. It's important to have some cash in your hands. Look at the lines at present in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the bank. You may want to avoid that. In the context of COVID-19 right now, you may need to have some protection, personal protection equipment to guide you. And that is why it's important for you to be able to take your vaccination in the event that you have to be assisted or you have to assist others. So this is critical right now in terms of being prepared for the hurricane season. Look at your surroundings, look at your home, look at your structure, your house. Make sure that your roof, do an assessment of your roofways, your waterways. If you live close to a gut, look at the surrounding area of how the water is flowing, so that to avoid potential flooding to your home, and many other things that you can do to prepare for the hurricane season. Feel free to contact NEMA at 466-5100, and we will give you some leaflets and guidance as to things that you can do as a family or as an individual to help prepare for the hurricane season. Just be mindful that it takes one simple act of impact of a tropical storm to cause havoc on our lives. And Madam Moderator, I want to make reference to something. During Dorian, in the impact of Dorian on the Bahamas, the United States of America was one of the first responding countries that responded to the impact of Dorian. And they provided assistance in having persons evacuated to Florida. And they had, accommodation and shelters for the affected individuals. But there was a criteria which affected a lot of persons, and a lot of persons criticized. The United States of America said, unless you have a U.S. visa, you are unable to come to the United States. So many individuals who did not have a U.S. visa were not able to get the assistance of the United States of America. I say this to say, we can find ourselves in a situation where we are devastated by an impact of a hurricane, and countries that are willing to assist us may not accept you just because you may not be vaccinated. It's a potential occurrence that can hamper you from getting some assistance. So a part of the hurricane preparedness measures should be your consideration to be vaccinated, so that if some eventuality happens and you need to be taken overseas for assistance or assistance offered to you, you can be good recipient of that assistance.
Thank you so much for standing in the gap for Ms. Riley, who's been having some difficulty with her connection. I believe she's back on the line, and if she is, in beginning our wrap-up, given her challenges, I think she should be allowed to go first. Welcome back, Ms. Riley. We appreciate your patience and your stick-to-itiveness. In closing, if you could also just respond to two questions that were put to you, because I believe Mr. Samuel did a pretty good job of outlining what the role of CDEMA for the Caribbean was, as to how many countries have given help to St. Vincent and the Grenadines so far, and any advice CDEMA would provide for the region as we prepare for hurricane season. Ms. Riley? Are we able to, is she still there? Okay. Well, we will go next to Dr. Didicus Jules, Director General of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, or OECS, and allow him to wrap up at this time. Dr. Jules?
Yes, I want to thank you, first of all, for inviting me to be on this program, and to say to the people of St. Vincent, to the Federation, that we are very grateful for all of the support that your government has given people of St. Kitts and Nevis, to our sisters and brothers in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The only way forward for us in this Caribbean is through increased solidarity and unity. It is very clear that unless we are able to do stuff to help each other, nobody internationally is going to take us seriously. And this is one of the big lessons coming out of this experience. At the OECS, we are going to use our form to continue to reach out internationally to mobilize as much support as possible, not just for, well, in the first instance for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but also to assist countries themselves assisting St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because there's a lot that needs to happen. There's a lot more support needed, and we don't know how long this situation is going to last for. So we are planning for that eventuality, for the longer haul, and putting in place the mechanisms for fundraising. As I said earlier, we are seeking to mobilize at least $100 million for this effort internationally.
Thank you so much. Ms. Riley? I'm told by our producers. Okay. Would
Thank
you like to?
Are we at final words?
Yes.
Okay. So 3 things I want to say. One is about resilience, because I think with every event, it really emphasizes the importance of investing in resilience at the individual, the community, as well as the national and regional levels. 2 is about regional solidarity, because I think, like Dr. Jules, that in the face of adversity, it brings out the best in us as a Caribbean, and it really demonstrates the depth of the skills, talent, resourcefulness of Caribbean people, and we've seen it again here in the experience with St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And for CDEMA, this is what makes our system work. And finally, it's about the message of readiness, because we're entering the hurricane season with the complexity of COVID-19. It means that we have to do things very differently, but we also have to find a way to do them safely. And I heard Mr. Samuel's intervention when he was talking about the preparedness actions, and I just really want to echo all of those and to say thank you again so much to the Honorable Prime Minister for inviting me to participate. I do apologize. Flo is just not cooperating with me this evening. So I hope, however, there can be another opportunity. Should the Honorable Prime Minister desire, I'd be happy to come back and support the program. Good evening.
And have a good evening as well. We really appreciate you taking time out and sticking with us through all the difficulties to the end. We appreciate Dr. Jules as well for taking time out in both Barbados, where Ms. Riley is, and she is the Acting Executive Director for the Caribbean Disaster Management Emergency Management Agency, CDEMA, Elizabeth Riley, and Dr. Didicus Jules, who is joining us out of St. Lucia. He's the Director General for the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, or OECS. So both of you have a good evening. Thank you so much. Mr. Abdias Samuel, who is the National Emergency Disaster Coordinator at the National Emergency Management Agency, also known as NEMA. I think I've done well with all of these titles this evening. I'll allow you to wrap up now, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. And Jackie, I have to call you Jackie because just for the listeners and the viewers, when we were small, Jackie used to always provide me with the Noel biscuit, if you remember those small Noel biscuit. So, and I used to always take them away from Jackie when we walked from 7th School in Martinez to Newtown. So I want to, on behalf of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, I wish to express my profound gratitude to many persons, businesses, who would have shown that patriotic spirit in coming together to assist the people and the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Allow me, Prime Minister, with your permission, to outline some of these contributors. We had Tropical Shipping, who provided free transportation to St. Vincent and the Grenadines of these goods. Ram's group of companies for donating over $40,000 worth of food. The Odi Brisbane and Sons, Ross University School of Medicine, who would have donated tremendously yesterday and also gave a pallet of food for us to also take care and consider animals in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The Care Foundation, Lions Club, National Housing Corporation, churches including Seventh-day Adventist Church Anglican Church, and many others. Island Purified Water, the Lille Walwyn, Ocean Cold Storage, Carib Brewery, who came forward and supported with manpower and equipment to be able to pack these containers. The St. Kitts Bar Association, Digicel, SCASPA, who provided assistance in many ways to this operation, and many other companies, and in particular the citizens. I just wish to inform you that we have collected so far $5,750 in donation through the Treasury and the National Bank, and this would have allowed us to accomplish this in less than 48 hours. I think as citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis, we have to feel proud to see young people in the Red Cross in particular, and I want to acknowledge Mr. Elmer Burke for making his team available to us to support this. But most importantly, I want to acknowledge the sterling leadership of Ms. Ulrika Lennon-Petty and my other staff at NEMA, in particular Ms. Ophelia Blanchard, Ms. Shanice Allen, Ms. Anthea Earl Hendrickson, Ms. Bereese Williams, Ms. Vesta Southwell, who while on vacation came out to work just for this day to ensure she supported these efforts, Mr. Patrick Williams, who would have stayed long and ensured that everything was in order, and also Mr. Sherman White, who assisted. These individuals, under the circumstances, did their best to represent the Federation in showing solidarity and also in displaying what our motto says in being country above self. Thank you very much. And we do have another container, already empty container at NEMA. We are waiting for more goods to load it and have it shipped again to St. Vincent next week, Tuesday. So again, please bring your contribution. Let us continue to show solidarity with our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And please, do your best. We have 10,000 vaccines. We need to get 10,000 persons vaccinated by the 30th of June. We are going to be on a drive coming from door to door to encourage you to be vaccinated, and also support your employers in whatever they are doing to help you stay employed and be vaccinated. It's a very important cause, not just for you, but for everyone else. Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, for having me here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samuel, and thank you for putting our business out there. We know each other from primary school, Seventh-day Adventist alumni. Mr. Prime Minister, you'll be allowed to bring your program to a close. I think you've had quite an informative program this evening.
Thank you very much. I want to just say a hearty thank you to all those who have tuned in tonight to another edition of Leadership Matters. And leadership does in fact matter, and that is why St. Kitts and Nevis does its very best all times, and we want to continue to be a responsible member of the regional and international community. I want to say thank you to you, Jackie, for being an excellent moderator and for assisting us with this extended program tonight. I owe an immense debt of gratitude to Dr. Didicus Jules of the OECS Commission for coming on tonight's program, providing a wealth of information, adding a regional perspective to the discussion that we were having tonight, and mostly for staying for an extended period of time to be part of this important conversation that we had a few minutes ago. Equally, to Ms. Riley, I want to say thank you very much for participating and to sharing with us more information about the role of CDEMA and its contribution to the efforts in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Your perspective with respect to other issues put to you have been very helpful, and I'm sure they add to the public education of our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis. To Mr. Samuel, again, thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for what has been done and is to be done as St. Kitts and Nevis continues its strong support to the people and government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. To all our citizens and residents, you owe it to yourself to get vaccinated. Do it for yourself, for your families, for your co-workers, for all those with whom you will get in contact with. Most importantly, do it for St. Kitts and Nevis. We need to get our economy fully back to work. Before COVID-19 hit us, St. Kitts and Nevis had a track record. Not only we had the strongest fiscal resources within the region, by the end of 2019, we had the largest number of persons employed ever in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis. Social Security boasted the largest number of active contributors to the scheme. Social Security also, records would reflect that we had the largest the largest amount of wages paid in St. Kitts and Nevis. Indeed, in the last 5 years of Team Unity, the record year has been one in which we crossed the $1 billion mark of wages and salaries paid to persons in St. Kitts and Nevis. As we look to the recovery, we look to put more people back to work again. We look to having more vibrant businesses, and we look to our people having a better quality of living. All of these are contingent, as you have heard Dr. Jules said, on our successful management of COVID-19. Indeed, the story is the same for United States of America, the United Kingdom, and Canada. Every country has been impacted adversely by the COVID-19 pandemic. And every country is trying very hard to reach to herd immunity. St. Kitts and Nevis can be the first to do so. And so I'm urging all of us, get vaccinated now. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. Thank you very much also for having this program so that we can be aware of the efforts taken to assist the persons, our brothers and sisters rather, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and first to find out more about our disaster plans here in St. Kitts and Nevis, what we are doing to assist, and to answer any questions persons had regarding the announcement made about what the government of St. Kitts and Nevis is willing to do. So thank you so much. I want to thank all of our callers. We had quite a number of callers and persons contributing via WhatsApp. You continue to make the program what it is. Thank you so much for joining us here on Leadership Matters every week. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place. Take care.